Welcome to the Woodpreneur podcast, the best podcast for the business and marketing side of the sawmill, lumber, and wood industry. What's a woodpreneur? If you have a business where you make money as a woodworker, sawmill owner, selling slabs, or a content creator, then you're a woodpreneur. My name's Steve Larosiliere, and I started Woodpreneur Life, Acres of Timber, and the Woodpreneur podcast just for makers, wood entrepreneurs, and small business owners just like you. We're on a mission to empower thousands of wood businesses to grow sustainably and put out great products. Each week, I interview makers, sawyers, content creators, and 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs that know the wood industry inside and out. With topics covering everything from the urban lumber movement, sustainable sourcing and design, we'll discuss the ins and outs of how to grow, monetize, and fully immerse yourself in the woodpreneur lifestyle. If you're a hobbyist, a full-time wood business owner, part-time entrepreneur who wants to become a content creator, or quit your day job to pursue your dreams, the Woodpreneur podcast is just for you. Thanks so much for listening. Now enjoy this episode. Hey, welcome to a brand new episode of the Woodpreneur podcast. Is your host, Steve Larosiliere. Today's guest is Nick Baldo from Oakvale Home. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. Why don't you tell everybody about Oakvale Home and how did it get started?
Yeah, for sure. So Oakvale Homes and Development, we're a large remodel and new construction business here in Buffalo, New York. So we focus on very large projects, so interior remodels, additions, and we've done some custom home building as well, and it's kind of the direction of the business. Got started, I would say, probably about 15 years ago or so, actually with investing in real estate. So myself and my business partner, his name is Costa, we kind of started flipping houses, buying long-term rentals, really kind of on the side as we were doing our other jobs. And he became a really, really good carpenter, and to the point where it was it really worth it to put in all of this expertise into these flips, these rentals? And it seemed like there was a better market out there. And so the other thing we realized when we were doing our own investments was there's a lot of bad contractors out there, people we were trying to hire. So we saw quite a big gap in what the market demanded and what was there. And so we decided to kind of switch gears a little bit and start looking toward doing work for other homeowners. And so that was about 2015. We made that switch. Kitchens, baths, projects started getting bigger, started getting more intricate. And here we are today kind of doing those larger projects in new construction.
That's awesome. So you started around 15 years ago?
Yeah, I would say that was our first buy. And again, that was our own property that we kind of fixed up ourselves. Yeah. I have absolutely no technical skills. I've gotten some over the years, but I come from more of a business background. Costa has a technical skill set, and we kind of cut our teeth doing it ourselves. And then eventually, as we got into it, we're in other people's houses. We started hiring out those experts.
What was your background? What would you do before this?
Yeah, I was actually in the consulting world. So I graduated from college and went right into management consulting. And so I was doing supply chain operations consulting. Okay. Not technical at all. But what is cool about that is I was working with some pretty large companies, and we were kind of asking the questions: what's working, what's not, what processes work, what don't. And it was great. I kind of knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur of some sort. So like flipping was kind of the hot thing around that time, 2010, 11, 12. And, this sounds good. And so we kind of went in that direction. But what's neat about the consulting thing is that I think it helped me to put a lens on this business where there are a lot of processes that need improvement. And I think this industry has been and continues to be a little archaic in the way that we adopt technology. And so that has helped me, I think, to kind of take our business and set it up with systems and processes to grow and scale.
So you approach this from a consultant frame and saying, this is a process, this is how you break it down, and understanding your ideal audience and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think that my business partner would probably concur that I think part of our success is having a little bit of that outside perspective. I really think this industry, we can get pigeonholed. And I think that's why certainly, engaging in and consuming content like yours and others out there and educating ourselves from other places and from other avenues and angles is so important, because we keep, if we get tunnel vision, we think this is the way it's always been done. This is the only way to do it. And there's so much opportunity out there with technology and process that we should be at least aware of to see how we can better serve our customers.
When you first started out, so you started with flipping your own stuff, and then you realized that during that process there were a lot of like crappy like contractors, and you had the skill set and you had the at least the business know-how in order to improve upon it. What were those first couple of years like?
It was tough. It was a hustle, absolutely a hustle. It was making a ton of mistakes. It was learning by doing, getting almost every estimate wrong, almost every one, like, oh, here's how much it'll probably cost. Didn't know about that. Didn't know about this. Right. And so building up those skills. And, I think it's something that it doesn't necessarily have to be a long period of time, but there's certainly a period of time whenever someone's kind of going through business that you just have to be ready for it to suck for a while. And that is part of the process. So that was really, really tough and learn by doing. I will say, as we start getting into people's homes and start doing newer and bigger things, well, the risk has now shifted, right? It used to be that if we mess up, it's on us. And certainly that is the case when you're working somebody else's home, but you have to consider them too. So when you're doing something for the first time, we feel and we have felt that it's really important to be transparent. Listen, we are new, we are young, we are coming up to speed. This is new for us. We can do it, we think, but here's something you need to be aware of. We think it's important to do that right up front and, certainly tackle that during the sales process.
Yeah. Do you remember your first sort of project where you're like, oh my God, somebody's going to pay us to do that? Do you remember that?
I absolutely do. I remember the sale. It was a kitchen. And at that point in time, it was probably 2017 or 16. And the all-in price, including cabinetry, was $50,000. Yeah. And I was like, wow, that's a big, big number. And of course, now it's different, right? Like, not just because, our services have grown, but of course, just the market has grown too. But yeah, I remember walking out of that, kitchen table meeting and thinking we did it. We sold something. Now let's go deliver it. And it was a really cool feeling, that somebody's going to pay us as opposed to us dumping all the money into the property. So somebody's going to pay us to do it was a quite the revelation.
How did you know what to do yourself versus what to outsource? Like that kitchen. Did you do like RTA or did you like build it yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Costa had grown up as an apprentice in carpentry. So he had worked under a home builder and he has seen most of the process. And so we had a general idea of here's the sequence of events. And here are the things like the non-negotiables. We absolutely have to hire subs, certainly on our rough-ins, electric, plumbing, HVAC. And then drywall became one too, just because of the finish level. And so we kind of went at it like, we know we have the carpentry skills. So let's at least assume that it's after drywall, we touch and see everything, because that is going to be that final product that the customer is going to be living with for years. And we want to be in control of that. Certainly the other aspects are important, but one, we can't do them. And two, it's one of those things that, the wire is going to be the wire. You can't make it look pretty. Same with the plumbing. So Costa was more managing those subs, but it was kind of that after drywall point that we thought we should be in control. And that's what we still do today, by the way, with our staff.
And then do you remember the first milestone in which you decided to like level up and pivot? Was it like a job or was it like life or like, do you remember what that was that made that? So you started with the kitchen and then I'm assuming that there were like more things like that, but then what was that next milestone?
Yeah, I would say it was probably our first edition. So that was kind of okay, we got a call for an addition. Do you do additions? Well, we haven't, but we think we can. And of course, you have to have a really understanding customer. And we worked really hard with the architect to understand that, hey, we can do this. We just have some questions on how all that works. And I think taking our time and going through that project and some bumps in the road, but ultimately having a successful project. I think we realized at that point that our value is not just in the high quality craftsmanship, but it's also the project management process. It seemed like we were pretty positive with that. It was like we took this complex thing and we put it together in such a way that the customer knew what was going on. They were in control of their budget and their schedule, and we certainly put them out while we were working on it, but we got them back in on time. And I think that was a kind of a light bulb moment where it's like we have two really important value adds. One is we check the box with high-end quality craftsmanship, and the other is we are delivering a customer experience that it seems the larger the project, the more important that is. And so that was kind of the push to go toward that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. What sort of internal systems did you have to put in place? I'm assuming as like a consultant background, you're like, we can't do this with, notepads, right? Like what sort of infrastructure did you put in place that, and like, what do you think the impact was on the growing and scaling?
Yeah, great question. That was like the weird thing was I got into the business. I'm like, all right, so what do people use for project management and for accounting? And it was like crickets. Like, the people I worked with or our competitors in the industry, what do you use? It was like spreadsheet was like the best answer, right? It was mostly nothing, or it was spreadsheet. And I said, there's got to be something, right? And so that's where you start doing some research. We found CoConstruct to start. We eventually switched over to BuilderTrend at about 2018. And that was, a slow ramp up. But what I did with that, part of my background in consulting was understanding that change management is quite a difficult process as well. So we started really small. Sure. And I said, can we get the schedule on BuilderTrend? That's it for now. Let's just get the schedule. Start simple. Get that in place. Make sure we all understand that's where you go for the schedule. Okay, great. And then we started doing some building blocks. We started doing daily logs and to-dos, and job costing came way later just because it was a little bit more complicated. So that was our approach, was to start small. One thing that we have to acknowledge within this industry is that there is quite an adversarial relationship with change. Not a lot of people want to adopt new technology, whether it's subs or employees.
Especially your subs, right? Especially your subs. Yeah.
Especially our subs. Yeah. It's like, hey, I've done this way forever. It works great for me. And it's like, okay, understand. But let's just envision a world where we pay you the day you send us the invoice. That'd be good, right? Gets deposited right away. That'd be good, right? So having them understand the value is the big part of that. And just not forcing it down their throat. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And again, starting small and then chipping away at it. And now, I think we just had an evaluation with BuilderTrend. We're in the 99th percentile for our usage of it, because they deal with it, right? They have an issue where people sign up for this expensive software and they don't use it. Yeah. And so we've really come a long way. And once you're using it to its full potential, it's a huge game changer.
What internally, I'm sure you thought from a consulting perspective, like, all right, if I have a partner that's overseeing the internal, like how did staffing look like? Like, so if you're like, what do you manage in-house? I know that you said everything that touches the drywall and you handle, but like, what sort of internal resources did you handle? And like, what was that like, that transition like to adding more team to yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the first thing it became relatively clear we needed to hire was carpenters, because Costa was the only carpenter who we were kind of trusting on the finish work, and we were getting bogged down. So we started really looking for carpentry, and that started really slow. Hired one guy, trained him up a little bit, hired another guy. We're at 5 carpenters now, and they're all at various levels. But that was really the first thing. We needed that help. And then aside from just hiring the carpenters, now we had a new bottleneck, which was Costa was the only one who was kind of managing them and what they were doing. So then we started implementing the lead carpenter system, which was elevating a carpenter who has the skill set to be kind of a project lead. And I think that was really essential to enabling us to tackle multiple projects at once. And then the last and probably most pivotal and most crucial hire we made was about a year and a half ago. We hired a dedicated project manager. Okay, so this would be on top of the technical side, managing all of the projects. And in fact, the individual we hired as a young woman who actually had no experience in the construction industry, just kind of like me a little bit, but was really good at process, really well organized. And she manages BuilderTrend schedules, meetings with customers, selections, all of that. And that has been another new pivot point where we realize, wow, we can take on a little bit more. These guys in the field can really focus on this specific project, this specific detail. And our PM has all of that other stuff that they are not interested in managing all under wraps. And that, I would say, has been a key too to releasing me to build the business in other ways. I was kind of doing that PM role, and I wasn't doing a great job at it because there's so much to it, and I had all these other things I was doing. We were dropping the ball. So that's been a huge game changer in the last couple of years for us.
I definitely want to acknowledge the fact that, like, just because you own the business doesn't mean that you're the best at project managing the projects, and that makes it's really assuring when you see somebody whose job is dedicated to ensuring that your product is delivered on time and the customer gets what they're paid for. Because if you have to keep dipping back into, like, I need to keep the lights on and continue selling while delivering, that's like the hardest thing don't you think that's hard? It's so hard.
Absolutely. Like the PM role, there's so much to it, and there's so much that, it's built into our price, but it's managing selections, it's meeting subs, it's doing inspections. And, I'm in the car all the time driving from projects when it's like, what about making payroll and doing all that? And so if I do that, then I may be missing a meeting, and we're inconsistent. That was the biggest thing. It was like, sometimes I'm there and the customer's like, wow, this is awesome. But then it drops off when I get busy in other areas. And to me, I think that consistency is super important.
Well, sometimes you get into this role where, you've literally wined and dined them to sell them. And then once you got them, you got the deposit, you're like, oh my God, I now have to deliver it. So now it's like this other hurdle of onboarding and getting everything going. But then if you focus so much on the delivery, you literally forget about selling more.
Yeah. And you could see it with the ebbs and flows and everything, right? Like, sales are high, PM's not doing well. PM's doing well, customers happy. That means we probably don't have many sales, right? And there's only so many hours in the day. So, and it takes a while to get there, though, right? As far as understanding that the hire is going to be worth the investment. It's a lot of money to hire good people for these roles, and it can't happen right away. You got to cut your teeth. You got to go through. You have to know what the process should be when they're on board as well. But reaching that pivot point is huge.
How often do you think about the customer journey right now? Like,
constant.
Yeah. Do you have like a process? Like, I don't know. I think I think a lot about that. 'Cause like when, like Nordstrom or Mercedes or whoever, like whatever brand is out there, they make you feel like something. And I find that, like, in the trades or anything else, like, when we got our place renovated, there was no real onboarding experience. The guy got everything done, but there was no transparency, no process. It was like, it was hard to visualize what the end result was, right? Like, do you guys have that?
Yeah, and I would say that is probably exactly what we talk about when we check the two boxes. One is the quality, one is the customer journey. It's that process and being transparent about what that is. So it's been a while developing it, and we're still tweaking it, but really it starts with the initial visit and the idea that while we do offer what we call free estimates, we don't necessarily do free proposals, in that I can tell you kind of right now your ballpark, here's how the process works from here. And we really lay that out, that we're going to go free estimate. Hey, if we're in the same ballpark, you want to work with us, we'll do a pre-construction agreement in which we're going to get paid to help them understand what the scope of work should be, what the budget is. And then we move forward on, here's our roadmap to, we have pre-construction meetings up until the point where we start building. When we're in your house, here's the different meetings we're going to have, whether they're weekly with the lead carpenter or bi-weekly on-site or not. And then here's how substantial completion works. Here's how punch list works. Here's how pictures and feedback works. We do try to show them that whole journey.
Yeah.
And again, the PM has been pivotal in making sure we're consistent with it.
Yeah.
SOPs, standard operating procedures, is something we're working on. This has been like the poster child for it. It's like, let's get this one kind of locked in, and then kind of build off of that.
What what's the team look like now total?
So we have 8 team members, most of which are carpenters, and then myself, my PM, and then Costa, who his role is kind of our technical PM. So so we're at eight people internally. We don't currently do our design or architectural work in-house. We are working with third parties on that, which has been great so far. I think it keeps us flexible. It's always a consideration should that come in-house. Right now, that won't be. So.
Yeah. What was there a project that like almost broke you, but then at the same time you were like, oh, this is really pivotal and transformative for our business?
That's a good question. Almost broke us. Yeah. I think there's almost every year a project that's like, whoa, like kind of wish I didn't have that one, right? And it's either because the numbers don't work or the customer's tough or whatever. There's usually one per year. And, there's one that comes to mind. It was a really large, pretty much full house remodel a couple of years ago where, this was pre our project manager and things kind of got off the rails. I didn't do a great job scoping it. The scope was, let's renovate these rooms, let's do this and that. We didn't get into the details. We didn't understand this client was going to go way above and do a bunch of change orders and stuff. And so it quickly got to this point where the scope is almost completely out. We're renovating all this extra stuff we didn't think we were going to. So now we're change ordering and we haven't communicated properly that this means it's going to take way longer, right? So you told me 2 months. Now we're at 4 months, 5 months. And we trudged through that thing and got through it. And it was tough. I wouldn't say I wish I didn't have it because what it did, I think, was it really lit the fire. Like, hey, we better hone this stuff in. We got out of there clean. Like, we're okay. But we learn a lot from it. And I think that's the most essential part. It's like, once you're into it, you got to find a way out. Typically, hopefully that's a good exit, but whatever the case, you're going to exit a project and it's reflecting back on it and saying like, what can we learn from that so that we don't repeat it? So, that one was tough. And I think too, we learned a lot about being transparent with the customer on capacity. Is it, hey, we said 2 months and we're just going to pretend that it's going to be, and we're not going to tell, or should we come up front and say, hey, we want to add all this stuff. Listen, we're still small. We can't do it in 2 months anymore. Here's what it's going to be. I think that will go a long way.
What does marketing look like for your business?
Yeah, we, ton of word of mouth referral stuff, which is good and lucky and great. We have amazing customers. I think one aspect of that is important is part of the process that you asked about earlier is we do kind of formalize an exit interview process. So when a project is complete, we'll typically couple that with photographs. So if we have our photographer coming, we'll typically have the photographer kind of going about doing their photos, and we'll sit the customer down to really dive into what went well, what didn't. We really focus on the negatives, tell us what didn't go well. If there's positive, we really try to get that review, get that feedback. That's essential. That being said, beyond that, we've done a little bit of really targeted print advertising. So again, kind of higher end niche. We found some of these like neighborhood specific magazines. So like the exact
those work for you?
Yeah, they were great. And really all it is get one. Like if you get one from it, now we can turn on the word of mouth. Because most of those neighborhoods, the ones we're targeting, everybody's talking to each other. In fact, a lot of those, like the way the magazines work is it's the residents who are writing the articles. And so if we can get in one and really just hit a home run, then the rest of it kind of takes care of itself. So those have worked decently well. We kind of fell away from it just because we're so busy. We're at capacity. So that is huge. Now, I will say, I probably should have mentioned this on the front. probably the most important marketing avenue is our partners in the design world and the architectural world. So
Yeah.
our interior designers that we work with are amazing, and oftentimes they're getting the first call and the customer doesn't have a builder, and to be on their preferred list is quite an honor and amazing. And so we really love working with them. Architects, the same thing, because they have to trust that we can deliver that vision. So they are, I guess, without a doubt, our best referral source.
For sure. For sure. And how many projects could you handle at once normally?
So we're usually, well, at once probably like 3 to 4 or so. We're doing about 9 to 12 per year. That's kind of reducing the numbers, and the size of those projects is growing a little bit. But yeah, figuring out that stagger is important. So understanding that on the front end of a project, we're more intense on project management and technical leading, meaning managing the electrician, managing the plumber, but not necessarily installing trim. So trying to stagger those projects where we got 1 or 2 that are in rough-ins, and then we got 1 or 2 that are really, the carpenters are there, banging them out. So about, I'd say 4 or 5 at a time at various different stages, with about 9 to 12 per year.
Do you think about load capacity and like where you'd like to be, and like do you envision like 3 PMs each managing 15 projects? Is that where you'd like to potentially be, or not really?
It's definitely something I'm thinking about. I don't know the answer yet. One thing, I want to be careful not to grow just to grow, right? It's not, if we're profitable now and everybody's happy and satisfied, then we might be fine where we are. It looks to us like kind of a natural progression might be a slight differentiation between remodeling and custom homes. That's just a hypothesis at this point in time, that we might kind of have one crew or 1 PM more on the remodeling side, and then one crew, 1 PM or 2, whatever it is, more on the custom home and land development side. That might be the way that we go. The processes are certainly similar, but I'd say there's more headaches in remodeling, potentially larger upside from a margin perspective. Whereas new build is very much on establishing that process and keeping things tight so that, we can make money on a house, but the customer can still, get in for whatever their budget is. So that seems to be the natural potential progression that we're gonna follow.
Do you ever get tempted to be like, oh, we got this piece of land, oh, we got this architect, let's just do a spec house ourselves and find a realtor to sell it? Have you avoided that? Or
Well, yeah, we've avoided it. I mean, I'm certainly aware of the strategy. Flipping houses, I think, has really turned our eyes onto what the potential of that is. I think for us, that's not going to be a route unless we partnered, I think, with a designer. In that, one thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to guess at certain finishes and try to sell like we used to do when we were flipping, because I think we have the potential of overdoing it to a point where we put in some really expensive details that maybe this customer doesn't even care about. So I think that is something that's on our mind. If we did it, I'd want to find the right design partner so that we can go in with a little bit more confidence on the sales side. That being said, purchasing land and building up custom with a homeowner is certainly, we've done that a couple times now, and I think that's something that we'll continue to do as well.
That's cool. That's very cool. How's this year looking for you?
This year is looking good. We're getting into some fun, busy times here. We're finishing up our first new build, and we're breaking ground on our next week. And so, we got a full pipeline, and we're starting to kind of book out next year. We're about kind of on that year scheduling. We have everything for this year kind of planned, and we're trying to figure out what next year looks like. So, completely full. We're looking at backfilling some carpenters a little bit, just giving some more support and, making sure we're ready to handle everything that's coming our way. I think one thing that's important not to be naive about is that almost every project has add-on scope and change orders. And so I think it's naive to think like, all right, great, we got the staff, we got the timeline, we're ready to go. Here's the time slot. We always have to envision the very real likelihood that we're going to add on that other room or add that pool house in the case of a new build, right? So it's all it's all stuff. It's almost 100% of the time. So that's something we're learning too. It's like, let's be more prepared for that. The projects are there. I think the projects are there.
That's fascinating. Was the average price point in a home? Is it like 1 to 3, 3 to 5, or
So to
yeah?
build new, our estimates are going from like 900,000 to 2.4 or so.
Okay. Yeah.
Is the ones that we've put together. I think that in this market, people are building for 500, 600,000, but not quite at the level of finish that we are delivering. So
Sure,
that's
sure.
kind of where we're at. Yeah.
Yeah. So so like 1 to 3.
Yeah.
Have you sort of narrowed down the your ideal customer? Like who is the ideal? Who's the
Yeah.
person that's like, I want a brand new, especially in your region, right?
Yeah.
The Buffalo region.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, a few things. I think one really interesting one is we typically are finding our ideal customer is somebody who's renovated before, almost
Yeah.
without fail, in that they've gone through the process and it might not have been a nightmare, but it's probably more average, as in, like, the communication was a little bit sparse. They finished late and it was over budget. That's very, very common. And so that
Yeah.
seems to be a customer who we can really work with and deliver them the value on, here's the project management we offer. Here's why you should probably use an interior designer. We typically prefer that our customers do. It helps
Yeah.
a lot. So those who have been through it and understand how many decisions they need to make
Yeah.
seem to be more prepared to go through our process. So that's
Yeah.
one. And then
It's
when it
like a
comes
it's like
to,
a stomach and an appetite for like change and and revisions, and it's because some people don't like that. They just
yeah,
want the decisions to be made for them. But this is more of a discerning type of client, correct?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's somebody who is like ready for that part of the process.
Yeah.
So, certainly that's kind of what we're looking for a profile standpoint. We certainly have our target neighborhoods as well, areas where, there's just certain areas where doing a renovation with Oakville is not going to make any financial sense from an investment standpoint. Not that many customers are getting dollar for dollar investment back on renovations these days, but you'd like it to be as close to that as possible. So there's really certain target neighborhoods that if a lead's coming through,
Yeah.
that we kind of know it's not going to work out. I'm going to have that conversation on the phone and just really get the budget piece out in the open early and say, listen, you want to do a
Yeah.
kitchen. Kitchens are costing this. Is that, and oftentimes it's like, oh, well, that's not for me. And that's okay. You can do, lower end stuff, and we have recommendations. We always try to tell our customers or our non-customers where else they could go to find those services. So certainly neighborhood, done a renovation before. And, then there's that kind of, intangible, is it a good fit? So we always try to meet everybody in person pretty early to just find out, are they just price shopping? Is price the most important thing? Or does it make sense that, what we're saying about process, what we're saying about the customer journey, is that resonating with them? Can we tell that they get it? If not, it might be something where they're going to just maybe find somebody who's a little bit cheaper, and that's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. Um, all right. So this is a part of the podcast where I give you any marketing or business advice. Is there anything that you need help with, or something you want to think through for your business this coming year?
Yeah, yeah. So one thing that we're doing is when it comes to, you know, content is I want to start educating more. So I do have a different business through which I educate real estate investors, and that's kind of its own thing. But
Yeah.
through Oakville, we're doing a lot that we feel we could be sharing. And so
Yeah.
my question is like, when it comes to content and Instagram and that kind of stuff, it's always like, all right, project updates here, project updates there. But do you have any advice for, trying to start educating? Maybe it's on how to use BuilderTrend or how to do that customer journey. What would be a good way of thinking about and planning out maybe that content strategy for more like education?
I love this question because one of the things that you need to think about is like who is the person that you're trying to talk to, right? Like who do you
Mm-hmm.
want to talk to? Like you mentioned like educating on builder trend. And so to me, that says that you want to potentially talk to other builders and contractors and home developers. That's one strategy. That one strategy will paint you as an authority. And then the end result is that you could end up doing consulting or acquiring other people, or maybe even speaking on stages at regular conferences. That is a strategy. But if you wanted to grow the business, I would definitely build more content on your builds and the updates and your
Hmm.
decision making process, how you're working with customers, meeting the team. And I feel like this is definitely one of the most impactful things that you can do on your business. Because here's the thing, most builders are putting pictures and maybe some video of their builds after it's done.
Hmm.
Not too many people are going through the process and showing time lapse of behind the scenes of the process. Like, you are selling an experience. And
Right.
if you had the opportunity to speak to your ideal customer who is used to this process, like they actually get into the weeds of picking flooring, picking tiles. Like, they love that process. And that's what you help your customers with the help of your design partners to do. But if you're able to document all of those things, that would set you apart from 99% of your competition. So here's what I like to do. I like to give this example. Um, there was there was a my kid's school is doing a fundraiser. We were, and I part of the committee that's helping to put on this fundraiser for my kid's school. And there was a choice between three different DJs. One DJ could do it, had the experience, but their social presence didn't accurately dictate or show their experience. I know that they could do it because they do it every weekend, but they didn't document the whole entire process of their thing. Like, the sample mix of what they did was like from years ago. It didn't accurately show what they're able to do. Okay, that was one person. The second person, oh, and they had no website, no reviews, nothing. The second person, way over budget,
Hmm.
um, could do it, had the name reputation, but it didn't fit at all. Like, it didn't fit, right? The third person had reviews on two different websites. They had an up to date website. Their Instagram accurately showed their work. And then the third thing is that they literally came within the budget.
Hmm.
And I was like, all right, I was like, I know other people can do it, but I was like, it made 100% sense to go with this person because what did we look for? Was there a fit? Did they tell the story? Did they have examples? Did they have reviews? Like, they did it. And so for me, I think for you as like a luxury builder in, Buffalo, New York, like, look at the competition. Are they telling stories behind their builds? No. And the other thing too is like, audiences are getting younger.
Hmm.
And people that I call it like the Yelp effect, right? Or the DoorDash effect, where before people make a decision, they're looking to see which one has better reviews, which one is better. You're able to connect to them and tell more stories. Um, and they can see people that look like them in your content. And so there's all this relatability that needs to happen in order for you to connect. So the best thing that I would do is like literally hire somebody near you that can come out and film 2 days a week,
Yeah.
and then you get a little mic, and then you're on the job site, and they're filming you from a distance, and you're talking. They're making decisions. You're making decisions. You're talking like, you're about to sit down with your architect, and you're like, all right, I'm creating content. You're tagging them in their content, in your content, right? Like, you're building this little the brand the story is right now is all about how do you create a TV show around your
Yeah.
brand. That's
Yeah.
literally
That's
it.
awesome. That's
That's
awesome.
honestly the biggest thing. There's this woman that I just started following, and I'll shout her out. Um, Her name is Ariel Houlihan. Oh my God, this woman, she is a volleyball coach in California, and she's got a microphone and a filmer that is just like dot, and everything is content. And she's built like a big audience, so much so that she's like this little celebrity in the volleyball world.
That's
And
awesome.
I love following her because everything she does is super interesting. You could hear her talk to her team. You can hear her talk to other coaches. And she's just expressing her opinion. And half the battle really is not caring.
Mm-hmm.
Not caring that you have a camera on you, not caring anything. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, really, who are you talking to? You're talking to the next person that has consumed all of your content. They know all of your builds. They know your process before you even have to talk to them. They know that the estimate is free, the proposal costs something, and they know that the prices start at $1 million to $3 million. They know everything. If somebody came to you with all of that, you think it'd be an easy sell?
Yeah. Without question. Yeah. And that's the hardest part to translate. It's like what this process is. And it's because we're trying to do it within a 5 minute, 10-minute intro. Right. But to your point, if it's happening over time, consistently getting reiterated, reinforced at their demand, right? They're the ones choosing to watch it, right? I'm not shoving it down
Exactly.
their throat. So that's awesome. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
That's literally what I would do. I would find somebody locally, and then that person could end up clipping your content. But here's the thing: is that like what you can end up doing is you can take that content. They can make short form and long form content. And then, I mean, the other thing that I was going to say is you need more blogs on your website. Like,
Mm-hmm.
again, you have great photographs, but if I don't know where they are, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
anything about the builds. I don't know who the clients are. I mean, I know clients sometimes want to like be discreet. However, to me, I'm like, yo, I want to know the process. I want to know how long it took. I want to know the, rough budget. You don't need to give, the exact address, but like what was difficult? What was great? Because it serves two purposes. One is that when somebody lands on your website, they get excited, right? The second thing is that once you start adding more context to the photos, the search engines will pick it up. And so
Mm-hmm.
once you start tagging and putting in the content the city or the county or the neighborhood or region, and then it's riddled with like custom home renovation, like you will naturally come up. So
Yeah.
that's why it's important to just tell more stories. Like you have to be more of a storytelling organization. And now that you've got like your project manager sort of dialed in, like I think you need to turn on the engine of like, all right, what stories could I tell today? Like literally,
Yeah.
what stories can I tell today?
Love that. Love that.
Cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Cool. And then, yeah. And there's last thing that I will say is there are some core evergreen content that you need to make. One is like an about us. One is how to do business with us. Um, Three is like meet the team. And then you have three frequently asked questions and then three uh, testimonials.
Mm-hmm.
And then those are evergreen. And I would just run a ton of money on ads just on those pieces, place them on your Facebook, boost them for Instagram and Facebook, and then just literally just put like $300 a month just on those.
Nice. Nice. Love it.
Because, yeah, is that helpful?
That's super helpful. I think you're right too. Like it's at this time, I got the team in place, the PM's there, the production is doing its thing, which is such a huge lift. in this
Yeah.
industry. Not that I'm sitting around looking for stuff to do, but it's time that I have the capacity now to do that. And like you said too, it's not like it's all me. It's a small team as well, some freelancers here
For
and there.
sure. For sure.
Awesome, thank you.
Cool. All right. Tell everybody your website and your Instagram so they can follow your work.
Yeah, oakvalehome.com, and then our Instagram is at Oakvale Homes. And yeah, check us out there, and you'll see all this awesome new content that's coming out per the recommendation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to getting your story out there.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was great.
All right. Take care. Bye.